If your poster needs 5 floating heads, 3 explosions, and 2 versions of the same character to explain the film, it hasn't explained the film. It is simply just panicked. Now, Marvel has produced some genuinely iconic movie posters, but it's also produced posters that just look like someone's opened Photoshop, dragged in every approved cast photo, and refused to delete anything in case the actor's agents noticed. So I'm comparing 2 Marvel posters that fail for completely different reasons, with 2 that solve the exact same problems. Because bad poster design does not always mean too much. Sometimes it means too little. So by the end of this video, you should understand the 2 biggest mistakes that kill promotional artwork. Trying to say everything and saying almost nothing. So let's start with Spider-Man Homecoming. Now this poster wants you to know that absolutely everybody is in this film. Spider-Man's here, Peter Parker is here, Tony Stark is here, Iron Man's here, the Vulture's here, and Michael Keaton's face is also here just in case the giant mechanical wings weren't being too subtle. Everyone got an invite. Some of them got invited twice. The immediate problem is hierarchy. Where am I supposed to look first? The giant Spider-Man head, Peter Parker standing in the middle, Tony Stark floating oddly above him, Iron Man flying towards us, the explosion, the Vulture, the Washington Monument. That is not a visual journey, it's an attendance sheet. And the frustrating thing is that Spider-Man Homecoming actually has a very clear identity. It's a younger, lighter, neighborhood-level Spider-Man film. Peter is trying to balance school, ordinary life, and being a superhero. He is desperate to prove himself to Tony Stark, but the Vulture brings the danger closer to home. There is a specific story here, but the poster, it barely communicates any of that. Instead, it presents importance through size and celebrity. Robert Downey Jr. is large because audiences recognize him. Iron Man is flying through the composition because audiences recognize him too. And Michael Keaton gives both a face and a villain silhouette. And Spider-Man gets a masked version and an unmasked version. The marketing logic is kind of obvious. Show people every reason they might buy a ticket. But design is not the same as inventory. Showing more doesn't automatically communicate more. In fact, this poster contains so much information that the actual story disappears underneath it. The eye keeps balancing between isolated elements because nothing creates one dominant emotional idea. Even the lighting feels kind of fragmented, and different faces appear to come from different visual environments. The explosion tries to bind everything together, but it mostly acts as just like a cinematic wallpaper. The poster tells me who signed the contract to be in the film. It doesn't tell me what the film is like. And that is the first major lesson. A poster is not a container for assets. It's an argument. It should make one clear promise about the experience. Now compare that to Spider-Man 2, because this poster also contains a hero, a supporting character, and a villain in a city, but it doesn't treat them as 4 separate pieces of information. It turns them into one relationship. Spider-Man is carrying Mary Jane above New York, and that immediately gives the image emotion. He's protecting her. She's close to him. You can see the relationship. There's a physical intimacy, but also danger. You can understand the emotional center of the film before you even notice the villain. Then you see Doc Ock reflected inside Spider-Man's eye lens, and suddenly the image becomes more than a romantic hero shot. The threat is present. It is literally inside Spider-Man's vision. He's holding the person he cares most about while watching the danger coming towards him. That is strong storytelling. One hero, one relationship, and one looming threat. The poster doesn't need a floating Alfred Molina head in the sky with 4 mechanical arms reaching in from each corner and a small picture of Aunt May looking concerned. It trusts the concept, and because it trusts the concept, the viewer understands more with less. The composition is also kind of much easier to read compared to the Spider-Man Homecoming piece. Spider-Man creates the dominant red form. Mary Jane's face becomes the emotional secondary focal point, and the eye reflection becomes the discovery. Then the city and warm sunset establishes the scale and atmosphere without competing with the characters. There is a clear order to this. Spider-Man, Mary Jane, Doc Ock, New York City. That order matters. The poster rewards the viewer in stages. The first read is heroic, the second is emotional, and the third introduces the threat. And all of that supports the same film. That is what Spider-Man Homecoming is missing. Homecoming shows us everybody. Spider-Man 2 shows us what matters, and that is a much stronger use of promotional art. But clutter is only one way a poster can fail. Sometimes the composition is clean, the hierarchy is obvious, and the image is still almost completely empty. Which brings us onto the Fantastic Four 2015. So at first glance, this looks more disciplined. 4 figures, 1 landscape, 1 huge vertical beam of light, plenty of negative space, no floating head avalanche. Surely this should work better. But the problem is that minimalism is not simply removing things. Minimalism means concentrating meaning, and there is a very specific meaning here. We see the 4 characters from behind staring at a giant beam in the sky. The beam is dramatic, the clouds are dramatic, the environment looks expensive, but who are these people? What is their relationship? What makes this the Fantastic Four rather than 4 strangers who have arrived early for a very aggressive weather event? The team's defining quality is not simply that there are 4 of them. They're a family, their personalities clash, their powers reflect who they are. Reed stretches intellectually and physically. Johnny is impulsive and combustible. Sue can disappear while holding everything together. Ben is trapped inside a body that makes him feel separated from the people that he loves. There is enormous visual and emotional potential there. This poster communicates almost none of it. The characters are reduced to back-facing silhouettes, and yeah, the Human Torch's hands are glowing. Yes, the Thing is recognizable, but there is no chemistry, there's no tension, there's no warmth, no personality. The image is selling generic science fiction scale rather than the unique identity that is the Fantastic Four. You could replace the 4 figures with almost any group of characters and the poster would still function in roughly the same way. And that is the problem. A clean composition is not automatically a memorable composition. This image does have hierarchy, the beam is clearly the focal point, but the focal point is just an unexplained beam. It is visually dominant without being emotionally meaningful. And when the most important thing in your poster could belong to almost any film, the design hasn't done enough. The poster says something large and mysterious is happening, which is technically true, but it is also the marketing equivalent of saying there will be events. Minimalism works when the remaining image carries more meaning because everything unnecessarily has been removed. Here, the detail has been removed, but the meaning has kind of gone with it. Now, look at Captain America Winter Soldier, because this poster removes even more, with no faces, no actors, no city, no explosions, no visible villain, no heroic pose, just Captain America's shield against a black background. But unlike the Fantastic Four poster, the remaining image is doing all the work. The shield is damaged, the red paint has been scrapped away, the surface is scratched, worn and darkened. That immediately creates questions. What happened to Captain America? What has he been through? Why does this familiar symbol look corrupted? The shield represents more than his weapon. It represents Steve Rogers as a character. It represents America. It represents his values, his identity, the institution that he's chosen to serve. So when the shield appears damaged, the poster is not simply saying there will be a fight. It suggests that Captain America's entire belief system is about to be tested. The symbol carries the story, and that is why this works brilliantly. The Fantastic Four is minimal because it contains fewer elements. The Winter Soldier poster is minimal because one element contains the entire idea. Those are very different things. The damage creates tension between what the shield usually represents and what it looks like now. It should be bright, clean and heroic, but instead it feels bad and almost colourless. The black background isolates that completely. There is nowhere else for the viewer to look, and there doesn't need to be. The image is simple, but the implication is not. That is the mark of a strong poster concept. It reads in 1 second and deepens in 5. You recognize the shield immediately, then you notice the damage. Then you begin asking, what does that damage mean? That is more story than the Fantastic Four poster manages with 4 characters, an alien landscape, and enough lighting to power a small city. So these 2 bad posters fail in opposite directions. Spider-Man Homecoming gives us too much information without deciding what matters. Fantastic Four gives us a clean image without giving us an image that has meaning. And the 2 successful posters solve those problems differently. Spider-Man 2 uses one clear relationship and one hidden threat to communicate character, emotion, and conflict, whereas the Winter Soldier uses one damage symbol to suggest the entire story. That is the real lesson. Good poster design is not about adding more. It is not about removing more either. It is about choosing the right thing, the right focal point, the right emotional promise, the right piece of information for the viewer to remember. So before you design a poster, ask yourself this: what should someone see first? What should they understand immediately? What should they discover next? And what should they feel before they've even read the title? If you can't answer those questions clearly, the poster probably isn't ready for more rendering, because polish doesn't fix indecision. It just makes the indecision shinier. And look, studio posters are obviously complicated. The final image may be shaped by marketing designs, cast billing, likenesses approvals, and pressure to feature particular actors. So this is not about blaming one designer for every decision. It is about judging the final communication, because the audience does not see the approval chain, they see the poster, and the poster either controls their attention or it doesn't. As simple as that. Now, if you enjoy blunt professional breakdowns of posters, comic art, and entertainment design, please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep analysing why certain images work while others just fall apart, and what artists can steal from both. But I want to know what you think. Which of these posters communicates the film best? And is the Homecoming poster genuinely bad? Or has the floating head collage become so normal that we've simply stopped noticing? And if you are an artist trying to improve your portfolio, positioning, pricing, and ability to get better clients, I cover all of that in my book, The Profitable Artist. And the link to that is in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.